Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney and I am a mom of 9. I homeschool some of my children. Some of my children go to public school, but all of my children are either in care, foster care, or adopted from foster care. And I know that some of you have been wanting some foster care content for some time now. And so that is going to be today's video. I'm going to um, talk about a few things, but this will be my introductory video to foster care. I've got my computer here with my notes. I will never disclose which of my children are in care and which are not, but I will tell you that 6 of my children are adopted, and 3 of them are not. 2 of those 3 are in the process of being adopted, so we're very much like at the end of their foster care journey. But until they are all adopted or reunified, I will never disclose which children are which, just for their safety. So without further ado, today's video, I'm going to be going over what I believe are the top 5 myths of foster care. One of them is kind of like 2 in 1, so it's going to sound like 4, but it's really just 5. I'll start with my first myth or misconception about foster care, and that is that people believe it's not for everyone. And I agree with this to some extent, that not everybody is destined to be a foster parent, but I do not agree with the concept that foster care is not for everyone. I get so irritated, and I don't easily get irritated when people walk up to me and they're like, "That's awesome that you do that, but I could never do that." And in my head, I'm like, well, let's just think about this for a second. I think you're being very closed-minded to the situation and the task at hand. There are ways to be involved in foster care without being a licensed foster parent, so I'm going to go over a few of those here. The first way that you can be involved in foster care is that you can become what is called a respite provider. Now, we are located in the state of Missouri, so we are accredited 12 credits per child for respite care per year. Some people use those for, like, if they need a weekend, a respite care provider will come, take the child to their home or wherever for a weekend, and then you pick your child up at the end of the weekend, and that's your respite care. So it's basically a provider that gives breaks to foster parents on their own accord. So you're not locked into a placement, you're not committed to a child, and a lot of the foster parents I know we have done this, use the same providers over and over because their kids get comfortable with those providers, so it's like going to see a friend or something. And so that is one way you can get involved. I know a lot of people use respite care, like when they go on vacation and they have a child that might not know how to make safe decisions at the beach or something like that, and they're worried. They'll use respite care instead of taking that child with them. We have never done that. We've always just taken our kids with us on vacation, but it gives you a resource to have a break. Anyways, the next way that you can be involved in foster care without being committed to a foster placement is you could be a CASA worker. Now, I've never had a CASA worker. I know they're generally reserved for teenagers in care where we're located. I am not sure about other parts of the United States, but where we are located, they're generally reserved for teenagers. You have to kind of like, I think you have to apply for one. Like I said, we've never used them, but I can tell you what a CASA worker does. They are there to advocate for the needs of your child, so they will help you get things that your child needs, resources that your child needs that you might not know how to get into. I know a lot of CASA workers will come to your home and like play games with the children if they need someone to kind of, you know, if you need someone to come to your home and like get your child talking and things like that about things that they need to get off their chest but they don't want to tell it to you, a CASA worker is great for that. I know that Laura, I think it's foster.parenting at, I'm back. My little Lewis just ran up to the door. He's like, I want water. He had his water gun like ready to go. Anyways, Laura at Foster Doc Parenting on Instagram is a great resource for people interested in foster care. She's kind of got videos about everything from little bitty kids to kids who come back into care, which is, that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It has happened to us. She's got content about like how to prepare a closet for children, how to get over food insecurity, which is a huge thing for foster children. So I highly recommend, if you're interested in foster care and you kind of want to know like the little tidbits of information, she's a great resource, and I will link her Instagram in the description down below. Another way that you can be involved in foster care without being licensed to be a foster parent is you can donate resources to your local children's services. Every child that has come into my home, minus 2 of them, has come with the clothes on their back and maybe an outfit and a backpack. And so the very next day, we actually had a large sibling group place with us, and they all came with the clothes on their back and one extra outfit. So the very next day, I went to Target, and I think I spent $2,500. My kids are slamming doors. $2,500 on clothes to get them a wardrobe. And so donations for clothing are a very high need in the foster care community. Hygiene products, I know, are a high need. Coloring books and toys. There are so many needs that can be met just by donating your time, your money, or resources to your local children's services. I am so sorry. I'm so sniffly today, and I keep rubbing my nose. It's just making it worse. Another myth and misconception is that foster parents do it for the money. I'm sure that's the case in some states. I doubt that's the case here in Missouri where we live. You can look up the stipends that are given in different states for foster children, and if you are in the state of Missouri and you are foster parenting for the money, you're not making any money. We are granted a stipend per child every month. I will say it probably covers their groceries and maybe a few hygiene items at most. It's a very small amount of money when you're talking about the needs of a child. We typically spend way more than what is given to us on our children. I know there are people that do it for the money, but I will tell you 90% of foster parents are not doing it for the money, and the ones that are, my bet is they don't stay licensed very long. It does happen. There are states where the stipends are quite high, and I'm sure that it is frequent in those states, but here in Missouri where I live, it's just not happening. We are, I think, out of the 50 states, number like 4 or 5 on the lowest paid states for foster care, and they just increased it for the first time since the 1970s here recently, so it's not looking like Missouri is going to be high up on that list anytime soon. And I hope that it stays that way. It sounds horrible, but like it keeps the people doing foster care that need to be doing foster care. And that's that. Number 3, I've got it on my computer over here. I keep glancing over. Is that you must be married to be a foster parent. This is one of my favorite misconceptions because I've had a child that was placed with us that is no longer with us, and that child was adopted by a single mom. He came to us with a lot of maternal anger, and so that child would listen to my husband, but he would not listen to me. And it was a battle for a good part of a year, and we realized that the child needed more than what we were able to give them, and you will realize that with children in your home. And as much as we wanted that child to stay with us, and as much as we love them, sometimes loving a child means doing the right thing for them as well. And so we gave our notice on that child, and I told the case manager, I was like, hey, I don't want this child moved abruptly because it would not be beneficial for them. We've got to find the right placement. And she kind of let me have my hand and say of where the child went, or not necessarily, I didn't get to pick, but she kind of let me talk to prospective foster parents for said child. And I think that it opened the door for me to be able to be completely transparent and honest about what the kid needed. And I knew the moment his now mother picked up the phone and I laid it all out there for her, and she said, I think I can do it. And she was single. She didn't have any other kids in the home, which is what the child needed. I have a lot of kids in my home. That was not what the child needed. And I told her, I said, he has got so much anger towards women and mothers. And the only way that's going to be fixed is if he is forced to trust someone and there's no one else in the picture to trust. And that child is doing wonderful. She adopted him last year and he's doing great. She sends me updates on him, and it's just so amazing to see that sometimes a child does not need a two-parent home. I had someone tell me that once. I was talking to them about foster care, and they were like, oh, I really think every child needs a two-parent home. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they need that single-parent home in order to heal from whatever trauma they experienced. And so there are many homes where there are single dads, single moms, a mom and a dad. There's just so many different options for every child, and every child is uniquely different. And so you do not have to be married to be licensed for foster care. And I think that's a wonderful thing because it opens up homes that might not have been opened up otherwise. My last myth and misconception about foster care is that all foster children are bad and that they are in foster care because of a fault of their own. That is never the case. In my experience, I don't know. I've heard stories about kids coming into care whose parents just could not control them. I would say that that is probably like 0.05% of foster children. Every child that has ever been in my home was in my home because of circumstances that were completely beyond their control. And I think that that is a misconception. It goes back to the first one that, oh, I could never do that. People have this preconceived notion in their minds that, you know, I could never parent a child that's not mine because they're not going to act or behave in the manner that I need them to behave. And that's a you problem. That's not the child's problem. We have had children that have had behaviors in our home. One of our adopted children has strong social difficulties, but it's something we work on daily, and you know, constant reminders of, hey, maybe we shouldn't laugh at that joke, or that's not funny, or you know, hey, let's think about how this affects the people around us. It's as much as just educating them, because some of them have never been taught in a healthy environment. They have never lived in a healthy environment, and so the behaviors that people see and comment on are behaviors that often are a result of the trauma the child experienced. It doesn't mean the child is inherently bad. I don't use that term with my kids. I never tell my children they're being bad. I will say, hey, you know, we shouldn't lie about these things. We shouldn't throw things, but I will never say, hey, that's bad, don't do that. I do tell my 2-year-old, like, you're being a little naughty today, Mr. But that's a whole different topic of conversation. Foster children are not bad. In fact, the children in my home have brought me so much joy and happiness that even the thought of someone coming up to one of my kids and telling them that makes me boil. I get so tickled. We have 9 kids, so we go to a restaurant together and we get looks, really fun like looks, and I'm sure people can read my thought bubble right here, you know. And I keep waiting for like the little old lady that's like, you know how that happens, don't you? And I'm like, let me educate you on how this happens. I keep waiting for the day that happens, but most of the time people will say stuff and they're smart enough not to say it like that, but they'll say stuff like, wow, that's a lot of kids. I'm like, yeah, it is. It is a lot of kids. And then they expect my children to walk into a restaurant and misbehave the entire time. And almost every time we leave a restaurant, almost every time, someone comes up to us and they're like, I cannot believe your children behaved better than some of the adults in this restaurant. And the funny thing about large families, not just large adopted families, large foster care families, the funny thing is most large families don't get to go out to eat often. And so my children know that it is a privilege to go sit down at Texas Roadhouse together. And they know that if they start acting a fool, that we're going to pack our 15 passenger van right back up and go right back home. So they do, they behave really well at restaurants. And it's nice to see a lot of the people who, when we walk into a restaurant, are like, whoa, what's going on there? Have their opinions changed by my family sitting down and eating a meal. So, and then when I'm like, oh yeah, all of my kids are adopted, because I never tell people out in public, like our situation. I'm like, yeah, they're all adopted. That's what I tell them, just to keep my kids safe and their information private. The look on their face could kill. It's just like, oh man, that's really cool. And then you can see it clicking that all of those preconceived notions that they had about children who are adopted or in foster care, it melts away because they get to see them in an environment where you would otherwise see behaviors. And so I hate that that is a myth about foster care. You see a lot of children on photo listings that have been in care for 10 years waiting to be adopted. Those children are not on those photo lists because of anything they've done. They are there because there are no resources. I know in the area I live in, last I checked, there were 30 licensed foster families and 400 children in care. So I'll let you do the division there, but in the state of Missouri, you're not allowed to have more than 6 foster children in your home unless they are related to one another, which is our case. We have a large sibling group, we have a smaller sibling group, and we have some other placements, but it is what it is. Well, I think that wraps up today's video, and if you have any questions or you want some foster care resources, I will drop some in the description below, some books that we use or have used, some books that we use for our children so they can kind of understand where they came from. I'll probably do an adoption version of this video soon, but that's it. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.